Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. And tonight, our very, very special guest, Greg Meinholz. Greg, hi.
Woo. Hi, Dawn and Matt.
Hey, Greg. Thanks
How
for
was
being
your
here.
week, Greg? What's new?
Thank you
What's
for
going
having
on in
me.
your life? Of course.
Oh, nothing new. The same old. Just living life, going to work, writing when I can. That's what I like to do right now. That's why I'm here, in fact. So
Yes.
just waiting. Tomorrow's Friday, so
Yeah.
ready for the weekend.
And if you're watching us and not just listening on the podcast, I shouldn't say just because that's diminishing that you're listening. Thank you for listening on the podcast, but you're missing out on Greg's fantastic jersey collection behind him.
Yes, isn't it beautiful?
It's beautiful. So are we in your living room or are you in your
I have like a basement that I call my Packers man cave, and I'm a big collector of autographs, and I'll kind of pan over just a little bit, and I'm everywhere with my autographs. So I've got everything from Tony Canadeo to Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. It's like I'm from the dawning of the Packers to today, and everything in between.
I love that.
Do you have any tips for getting all those signatures? How do you do it?
Honestly, I have a lot of them I've gotten in person, but also there's a store that I like to go to. It's called Waukesha Sports that's nearby, and they usually have a lot of player signings, and sometimes I'll haggle with them. If one costs like $30, I'll say I'll give you 20, and they'll just say, yeah, go ahead, take it. So, and I always try to get players when they're young. So that's why I've got Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs now. I've had Jordan Love for 3 years now. and so it's get them young, otherwise they'll be way out of what I want to pay for an autograph
that
in the future. Like Aaron Rodgers, that was probably like $900 pass. I got him right after they won Super Bowl 45, and I think it was only about 200 back then. So
yeah, a bargain comparatively, huh?
Yep.
That's very cool. So did you get Jordan Love's in person or did you get it
Actually, he had a private signing, so I had to kind of like order it ahead of time, and he probably didn't want to talk to everybody, listen to what everybody wants to say to him at the time, because that was 2 years ago when he was right off the draft, so probably better to be private.
Yeah, definitely. Who gets to go to a private signing though in Waukesha? I wonder, like, is it the local beat writers? And like, no, because they wouldn't care about our signature. Who would go to that? I'm very curious about this.
I'm thinking probably just employees of the store. They take pictures, and they're always wearing like the store logo on their shirt, and so they probably keep it completely private, and maybe the player's agent, and that's about it.
Makes sense.
But they just show up to the store and just sign away.
Kind of like a book signing in a way. Although, I mean, sometimes you get to a lot of those you do get to get right from the author, though. I've gone to a couple book signings where the author would speak about the book a little, and you get to anyway. So what are we all doing for Sunday, since there's not going to be any football this weekend?
I don't even know. I mean, without the Packers playing, I'm still really enjoying the games because most of the playoff games have been pretty good. This last weekend was weird, but this Sunday I'm not going to watch the Pro Bowl. Like, no,
No, I used to watch it, but I just grew out of it when he started. The same thing. The reason why they're changing the game because players are just kind of, don't want to hurt you.
Right.
The first time I watched it was the last time I watched it, honestly. So like, I don't need to see this ever again. This is terrible.
I loved watching it in like the 90s, early 2000s. Now, not so much.
Not so much. Nope.
My sister and I considered going last year because Matt LaFleur was one of the coaches and there were a lot of Packer players there. So
Yeah.
that would have been the time. And I just glanced at, well, you get the emails about it and stuff. And it's like, I looked at who was there. And even the Super Bowl, it's like, I'm not interested because the Super Bowl is not super far. It's over in Arizona from here. But
Yeah.
nah, not that interesting. I mean, I'll watch it on television, but that's, the Super Bowl. Sorry about the Bengals. That was really a bummer. Man, that hurt. That hurt as bad as a Packers loss almost.
I mean, I tweeted about it. I just feel so bad for old what's his face who pushed Mahomes at the end there, and I can think of his name.
Osai?
Yeah.
Joseph Osai. Yeah.
Joseph Osai. I feel so bad for him. I mean, that's like if you follow Brandon Bostic, on Twitter, the kind of stuff he's had to deal with just his mental health and how that still affects him. And people are still super rude to him about, one snapshot, 3 seconds of his life.
Right.
And, to think that Joseph Osai might have to deal with that too in his life just because of one dumb adrenaline fueled move that he made. So I feel for him. I hope that it doesn't go that badly for him. And of course I fear that it will, given what sports fans can be like, what some sports fans can be like. So
unfortunately.
Yeah. I heard a lot of his teammates were standing up for him. So I'm sure that'll help. And people,
I hope so, yeah.
I mean, they should, yeah.
But it was a bummer because it was such a close game, and
it was too close. That's the problem. And then the refs.
Well, I don't want to get into that. There were some weird calls, no doubt about that. But
right,
whatever.
Right. Exactly. All right, so let's get to know Greg Meinholz a little better. I'm sure our audience is excited too. So Greg, your Twitter, it reads Greg Meinholz at G Meinholz. Legend. I'm going to talk to you about
Congratulations.
Yeah, right. Woo-hoo. Contributor to Packers.net. Posts liked by Aaron Rodgers, Charles Woodson, and Brett Favre. Your content is oh my gosh. So first question is super important. You said you're from Waukesha. Are you born and raised in Waukesha? So how did you become a Packer fan?
Actually, not Waukesha. I'm from Oak Creek, so that's not far from Waukesha. But Milwaukee area, it's a suburb of Milwaukee. But yep, I've actually was I've been here all my life, pretty much in just a 5 to 10 mile radius. Just the suburbs of Milwaukee, South Milwaukee, Cudahy, St. Francis, Oak Creek, all of them I've lived in at some point in life. But so I pretty much became a Packer fan. I'd say probably preschool, kindergarten is when I first really started getting into the Packers. And it just kind of started as like my dad turning on games and my brother and I just kind of playing with our toys on the floor, looking up at the screen. Oh, we like that. So it was just kind of glued to the TV and started to watch football, started to understand it. And we also, we get Nintendo video games and playing the Packers on Nintendo games. And actually the first game we had was Tecmo Bowl. I think it was from 1985, and the Packers weren't on Tecmo Bowl, so the team to be was the 49ers on that version, and it was like the 49ers were our second team, for a bit in the 90s, but now, I could care less about the 49ers now. But then it just go ahead.
No, I say, so since you were watching it from like a very young age and kind of starting to become aware of it, do you have like an earliest memory of actually watching a game or maybe a specific player or anything like that?
I do recall very vaguely seeing a number 7 quarterback for the Packers. So that would have been Don Majkowski. So mainly Brett Favre and Sterling Sharp. I'd say Sterling Sharp is the one I remember the most. He's the player that, that was probably the first name I ever really cared about with the Packers was Sterling Sharp. And just, watching him catch touchdown after touchdown, it was just, for me, it was that guy's the man. And so it was definitely Sterling Sharp. And I don't know exact moments in like a game that I can recall. I don't know. It's looking very far back. I don't. I can't think of like an actual game that sticks out in my head, but just I'd say probably about 92, 93 is when I first started getting more into it, and so that's pretty much when FAVE came out, and it's been FAVE from the beginning more or less. So I've been spoiled as a fan in that fact.
No doubt.
Big time.
That's it. Don Mikowski is when I started getting kind of interested in it because, having watched games in the early 80s when they were not good, of course, Mikowski was sort of a turning point for the franchise, kind of pivoting too far, I felt like, because it's like, oh, he's actually exciting. He's super unreliable and throws crazy balls, but like, he's fun. He's fun to watch. And then, of course, it was like even more so Brett Favre, even crazier, even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Mikowski. That's my first memory is actually getting excited about seeing the games he was playing in. So yeah, love that. So you grew up watching it, and I kind of cut you off before. I feel like you're laying out a timeline, and I kind of interrupted. So you were saying?
Oh, not really laying out a timeline, but it's one thing that got my brother and I into the games and the Packers a lot was we collect football cards, and it was just going to the store every Friday with our dad and just buying Packer cards. Like we didn't care who it was. If it was a Packers player we didn't have, we wanted it. It was, I just remember looking like Vi Sikahema, running back from like 1991 on the Packers, and just thinking, I don't have that one. I want it. It's like everybody around us is buying, Troy Aikman, Joe Montana, Steve Young. We're all just like, Mark Murphy, he's a safety on the Packers. I want that.
That's so Wisconsin. I love it. I wasn't into football at all as a kid or a young person at all. Only in my senior years have I, for some reason, got into football. But my game, I remember being little and running around, trying not to get in the way, as everybody else was watching the Ice Bowl. So that shows you how old I am. So, but I love hearing these stories, especially from Packer fans. Well, anywhere, but from Wisconsin, because it really is so much part of the culture that is not like that. Well, at least where I live here now, in Southern California, football is not, or one team. I mean, people like their teams, they might watch and all of that, but it's just not to the granular level that it is in Wisconsin.
Yep.
It's really different. It's really cool. And it reminds me of my dad and my brother especially. Okay, so that's cool. So I'm from a very close by. I'm from Racine, so you would know that, right? So I remember always driving through Oak Creek to go to the airport, right, in Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget more every year because I've been gone decades, but yeah. And then is there a power plant there with a thing?
Oh yeah, they're in Oak Creek, right at the border of Racine. There's a power plant. Yeah.
And then there's like a
big power plant
thing, like this tall thing with the blob on top.
Water tower, maybe? I think it might be.
Maybe it's a water tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the people who are listening to the audio version of the podcast, I want you to take a minute, okay, and find the video to see that Dawn was outlining the shape of this thing over and over again. It was amazing. She's doing it right now as I'm speaking.
Hey, when she did that, I figured out, wait, I think she means a water tower. Yeah.
It was effective.
I know nothing about so much. I know nothing. Water tower, power plant, same thing in my brain. Okay, great. Okay, so might you share a little with our audience about what's involved with being a contributor to Packers Talk before you tell us about being a legend?
Yes, I'm a contributor before a legend. But yes, so I started probably about this time last year writing for Packers Talk, and I started out just before I reached out to, I know I've heard him called the OG of the Packers blog sphere, Jersey Al Bracco, and he's basically he tweeted out that he's looking for writers, and I have had zero experience writing professionally, just kind of writing stuff down, high school, college, that's the extent of it, or just on free time if I felt like it. But I always wanted to do like Packers writing, something to that effect. So I saw that and I thought, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I reached out to him, and he just kind of let me know, send me your information, send me, kind of like an application article. So I kind of wrote about, we were just getting into the 2022 off season. So I kind of wrote about like, what do the Packers have to do in the off season? What could be on the horizon? And he liked it, put me on, and I've been writing ever since. I started right before the draft last year and started out one article a week, and I kind of wanted to challenge myself a little bit. So I think it was about August, September, like just as the season started to get rolling, I decided to, hey, can I get a second article in the week? I'd like to write 2 a week.
Wow.
Let's do this. So
Wow.
so I do 2 articles a week for Packers Talk, Monday and Friday. So right after the show, I actually have to finish up writing my article for tomorrow. So
so coming up on a year of doing that. That's awesome, Greg.
Yep.
So far in this almost year of writing articles regularly for Packers Talk for Jersey Al, who we should have him on the show sometime, Don. Jersey Al is awesome, really good dude.
Yes.
Question for you, Greg, is like, what article are you the most proud of so far?
Oh, I don't know if I have a certain article that I'm proud of, but I do have. I know, Dawn, you actually mentioned it in your superlatives. Week 2, you mentioned an article that I do, toasts and roasts, and that was actually the first time I had done it. And it was, since I got into 2 articles a week, I was like, I need something that I can just rely on. Like, I can have a Monday article that I can rely on, that I kind of know my outline, what I want to do. And then my Friday can be, whatever I feel like. And so that was my first time doing it. And I'm I love talking about Packers. I love drinking beer. So I'm like, I'm going to mesh them together.
Right.
And I created toasted roasts. And so that started, I've been proud of that. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, I love that, love that weekly article that you do. And I love, your comparisons and how you, compare like the bad players, something that went wrong to Bud Light. And so I have a lot of fun doing that. So I'd say that's
so good.
Probably my favorite one that I do.
Excellent.
I like that. I like
it's a good one too, man. Totally.
And so do you consider yourself so you didn't have experience writing professionally, right? You just did.
Right.
So, but you're able to do it and you're very good at it. Do you consider yourself more or less a creative writer or a technical writer? Are you a creative person?
I'd say a little bit of both. I mean, I get little ideas every now and then that, I think that could make a good article, or I could do that weekly. So there is the creative aspect, but technical in the terms of like, I've developed like a very meticulous process now of how I like to think out what I want to do and how I kind of put my articles together. So I'd say a little bit of both.
So with all the potential off-season storylines that are kind of laid out before us, and I think are many interesting ones at this point, is there maybe 1 or 2 that you're particularly excited to write about?
The easy one is Aaron Rodgers.
Of course.
I mean, there's that, but that's the problem though, is that I kind of like to challenge myself a little bit, go outside of the Aaron Rodgers realm, because that's what everybody is writing about. So it kind of is just a weekly process of what's going on right now this week. But I'd say probably the draft. Once we get into the draft, I wrote only 1 article last year about the draft. I wrote about Devontae Wyatt when he was first drafted. It was kind of like a breaking news. Right when he was drafted, I had to start typing up my article, and so I actually enjoyed that. So probably the draft will be something I'm going to look forward to. Just who's next, who could be the next great Packer. So I'm looking forward to the draft.
Nice. I love those kinds of articles where it's like, we just drafted somebody, we're curious who they are, as passionate fans, we want to like start to gather, like sponge up the information about this person. So like when those kinds of individual player profiles hit, I love that stuff. That's catnip, man.
Yeah. Yeah, bring that on. Okay, 2 questions. So are you into the mock draft in the draft? Obviously you are to some extent. And then also, you have a great radio voice. You sound, I'm kind of embarrassed because you sound better than us, and it's our podcast. But that's okay. We don't mind. You know, our guests need to shine. But in any case, my question is, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but do you find it easier to talk or to write? Because I just blurt crap out. I can't write.
I'd probably say talk, because it is a lot easier to kind of think about real quickly what you're going to say and just say it. When you're writing, you kind of got to piece it together, like, does that make sense? Is that a good sentence? Does that pop? And when you're talking, you can just wing it. So
yeah, people aren't as critical, are they? When you write, I can write, but I am a super perfectionist, and I would never meet any deadlines like about articles, and so there's no way, because sometimes it's like, oh, I could write about that. It's like, yeah, I'll see you in a year, because I'll be nitpicking everything I write. But and I see how you are, like, I see how organized and meticulous you are as a person. I can see that, and so I just was curious, because I would find it hard. How do you get over that self-criticism and actually get stuff done?
Oh, this helps. Yeah, I guess it's when I'm writing, I guess sometimes I just try not to think about it. I kind of spill out what I want to say, and I'll read it over once or twice, and I'll just think, okay, does that sound like something I would say? Yes. Okay, then just go with it. And it's yeah, sometimes I will admit that I don't read over my articles. I'll kind of skim over them, because sometimes I read them in my own voice and I hate the way I sound. So,
wow.
And you say I have a great radio voice. Oh, editing a podcast is going to be terrible if I don't like listening to myself.
Well, here's a pro tip. Well, I'm going to top your pro tip with my pro tip. Don't edit.
Exactly.
There we go. I'm in.
That's all I gotta do. Well,
go ahead.
Yes, hey, I think, Greg, what you talk about that is a good example of perfection is the enemy of progress. It's like, if you try too hard to get it all perfect when you're first getting it out, you're never going to get it all done on the page. Just get it there and then start revising and then. Exactly. I like how you put it too. Like, is this sound like how I would talk about it? Something I would say. Yeah. I think that's a really good perspective to bring to it.
That's excellent. Yeah, because that's really important, because I don't think I write the way I sound when I speak. I do more as I care less as I get older. But yeah, that's probably what would have held me back in the past. Okay, well, that's great. Very good information here if you're thinking about writing or wondering what goes into writing. Most people are more wondering what goes into it more than thinking they're going to do it, quite honestly. So, okay, so tell us about being a legend. What's that? How's that feel?
It's great. I'm gonna tell you that much. No, that started out as a joke. Early, like college, I should say, like mid-college, I worked at Target, and I was in the back room, and we were just a bunch of college kids having fun, and that joke just kind of started. We had our name tags when we worked, and we would take little labels and put it under, and like some people would put like what they actually were. Oh, I work in the back room, I work at this, I work at that. I put under mine legend. So it's just kind of stuck. Like at my current job, I think it was Coke cans. They had like little compliments on Coke cans for a little bit, and there was one that said legend, and I thought, oh, it just brought back the memories of Target. So I took it and put it up on my desk right next to my nameplate. Greg Meinholz, legend. So it just I was trying to think of, what do I put in this little Twitter profile?
Right.
Legend.
Right.
Yes, legend.
Love it. And you are that. What do you do in your day job? I mean, do you get to use your beautiful voice that we get to hear here in your day job?
I mean, sometimes when I join a meeting, but by day, I actually work in IT. I kind of work in like I guess you could call it cybersecurity. I basically look out for what vulnerabilities could attack the company, like what applications are vulnerable, if people are out of date, and push them like, you need to update your application now. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. As far as using my voice, we are in meetings, and I've been told sometimes that I have a calming presence when I start speaking. And then, so it's because I've got a friend that him and I have worked together for over a decade, and he'll pipe up and he'll have kind of like you need to get this done. You need to get your butt in gear, and then I'll come in and just be like, all right, gentlemen, this is how we're going to do it.
That's amazing. Okay, so if you're in Lady Cymbeline, hey, Lady Cymbeline, hi, thanks for joining us. She says, important job, Greg. So here's the thing. I mean, if you're telling someone, hey, you're being threatened, your cybersecurity is in danger, you would want it. I mean, I'd be kind of frantic about that. I mean, but you calmly deliver this news, or how do you handle that? Do you call people?
Usually it's via email.
It is email. Okay.
Yeah. So email, instant message. If I have to talk to somebody, then they get to hear my voice, and I'll try to calm them down in pleasing baritone. But
well, I'll tell you something. I get really annoyed when people send me important things on email, because I don't look at a lot of my emails and they get lost and all that. And then I remember really going off on it. It was like my landlord a couple of years ago. It was something really important and I needed to know about. And I was like, why are you emailing? That was my real voice. It was like, I did not hold back. He's like, if it's that important, send me a text at least.
Yeah.
I might look at it. Hi, lady. How are you? Thanks for joining us. Well, that's interesting. That's super interesting. Okay, so the little birdie told me that you might be starting a new podcast. So this is your opportunity, if you'd like, and if it's top secret, you don't have to answer this, but would you like to tell our audience a little bit more about this and maybe what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, I'd like to know who that little birdie was. I'd like to find out who the mole in my ranks is. I think it was actually me. So, but yes, a friend of mine, Nate, and I, we've kind of tossed around the idea of creating a podcast for a while. I think probably maybe a year or two, but at the time it was kind of like we pushed it off, and it's like, who wants to listen to us drink beer and talk about football? And then I kind of got into the Packers, podcast universe a little more, and I realized that 90% is everybody just drinking beer and talking football. So we'd fit right in. So we're tossing around the idea. I definitely, I told him about StreamYard, about when you sent me the link, and I thought, this is great. This just do everything for us. So that might be on the horizon. We'll talk. We're both kind of busy in our lives. 2 young kids, full-time jobs. Nate travels sometimes for his jobs, but we'll see what happens. It might be coming. Stay tuned.
All right, stay tuned, everyone.
Your potential podcast partner, Nate, is he like on Packers Twitter? Is he somebody that we might know, or is he kind of like somebody outside of that?
He's on Twitter, but I know he follows a couple people that I follow. He'll like or comment on some of my stuff occasionally, but he's not really involved in anything. So he'll be a newcomer when he joins. And he's got an excellent personality, a great big boisterous guy, and him and I will have a lot of fun. So
can't wait. I hope that does come to fruition. Of course, no pressure. Sometimes these things don't happen, but I hope it does.
Yeah. And if you need any support, we're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to turn you on to StreamYard. StreamYard is a great app, and it allows you to, record audio, but also to record the video if you want to do both. But many other things. So yeah, just hit us up if you have any questions or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely.
I love it. So, okay. So let's see. So you're an avid Packers fan. Are you a fan of any other teams, any other sports?
I am. As far as football goes, it stops in the NFL at Packers. It's nobody else would I ever like. It's Packers or bust. College football, obviously the Badgers in Wisconsin. So Badgers are kind of like hit and miss. Sometimes do I really care? Not really. Yes, I do. And it's like it kind of varies from season to season, but it's like definitely some exciting things going on with them. Outside of football, though, is hockey. I love hockey. That would be my second sport. So in Milwaukee, we have the Milwaukee Admirals. They're the local team. They're actually like the AAA minor league team of the NHL. So their NHL team is the Nashville Predators. So I like the Nashville Predators as well. So it's like their Nashville's farm team is Milwaukee. So I have season tickets to the Admirals. Guys that I watch in Milwaukee are going to eventually go to the NHL, and I'll see them on TV in Nashville. So it's a lot of fun. Actually, tonight they had a season ticket holders party. So I just came from that like an hour ago. They put out a spread, and the players were walking around talking to people, and it was a lot of fun. So
nice.
Second sport is hockey.
Well, how did you get into hockey then?
Yeah.
It was almost as organic as football. It just kind of happened. My dad and my uncle would take my brother and I to games kind of through the 90s and growing up, and I had a couple of friends in high school that would go to hockey games, and I kind of would meet up with them. What are you guys doing tonight? Oh, we're going to the Admirals game. All right, I could do that. And so, I'd go to the Admirals game, and it just kind of started. I'd started to understand hockey and, kind of got into it, and it took off from there. Now it's, I'm going to 40 games a season and watching 80 games on the TV.
So I don't really watch hockey at all. I'm really just like a football guy. Don't watch a lot of other sports. So I think if you could like tell me one thing, if I were to watch a hockey game, what should I be watching for?
I would say just skill. Everybody talks about fighting in hockey. Everybody thinks that the hitting and the fighting and just everything is hitting, fighting, and it just for me, it's like I really got into just the puck handling, like how these guys are on skates with these sticks and just handling this puck like it's nothing, and it just baffles me, and especially like passing to each other and just the rhythm. And I think that would be one thing I would watch, is just how in sync some teams are with each other. It's just you pass the puck here and that guy's over there, he's ready for it. He's got his stick down, takes it, and within a split second he's maybe passing it to another guy. And it's just knowing what your teammates are going to do on the ice at all times, just having that sixth sense at the back of your head, like, oh yeah, he's going to pass it to me right here. I know he's going to, and they're ready for it. And that's been something that's always just kind of baffled me, like the skill and the, that just involved in that. And
I never thought about. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
And doing it on skates.
On skates. That's crazy on skates. I agree, and I was going to ask you about: is hockey more violent than football?
I don't know. If you would talk to hockey fans, they would say yes. If you talk to football fans, they'd say no. So I don't know. It's hockey players definitely can take a lot more pain. Like you see guys getting. I usually sit by the opponent's bench. I used to be a big heckler as I've grown up. As I've grown up, I've kind of dialed it back. But I sit by the opponent's bench all the time, and it's just funny. You see a guy that maybe got a big cut on his face, and he'll just come off the ice, and I'll watch the medical staff stitch his face up right on the bench. I'll just sit there like, wow, that is a tough guy.
Oh my God.
And then he'll just hop back on the ice and be done with it. Yeah, I'm fine. And a referee might come up to him, you're still bleeding. Oh, okay. Well, it's not that bad. Just let's play. And so, yeah, I don't know. But then again, most hockey players are under 240 pounds. Football players, you got 300-pound guys hitting 5'11" guys. So it's there's a big difference. I think you're a lot more likely to get a concussion in football than you are hockey, just because of that. So.
Wow.
I want to say, Greg, I like how you describe the synchronicity and the sort of like mind meld of the players, on a team. I never thought of it that way. And I think we all have like a mental image of what hockey looks like, whether we've seen like very little or a ton.
Right.
And I think in picturing that, I kind of take for granted the skill that it takes to be like, whizzing across the ice, handling the puck like you're talking about with this stick. And, I think just the way you describe that has given me actually a new appreciation for hockey. So thanks.
Good.
I love that. I'm just going to say two quick things. I've been to a couple of Anaheim Ducks games, and all I cared about was whether I was going to get hit in the head with a puck in the audience. Like, I was just like, oh, because it's so fast. And it has happened. And I remember it's like, it has happened. So I wasn't exaggerating. And then the other thing is, I forgot the second thing. Oh, I want to get to a couple quick questions in our live chat before we go on. So first of all, back to
I have a visitor that wants to join me.
Oh, hey. And what's our doggy's name?
Her name's Bella. She's my
Bella.
I was shocked that she actually left my side before I started this. she was sitting on the other side of me before we got started. She just kind of ran upstairs, and I was like, "Oh, camera shy, are we?" But nope.
Is she a black lab?
Yep, she's a black lab.
My brother has a black lab, and he names all of his labs after Packer players. So his most recent, actually, is a yellow one now. I can't remember what color, but his newest one is Sterling, and it's for Sterling Sharp.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so Too Deep and Lady Cymbeline have some questions for us real quick. Hey, welcome, Too Deep. It's nice to see you. First of all, he said, hockey rules, don't get me started. LOL, go to a hockey game and you'll be hooked. I was just frightened. It was
you have
kind
to
of
watch
cool.
the puck all the time.
All the time, yeah.
I've caught so many pucks that have come out of play just in my area.
And you don't break your hand?
No, it's actually not as hard as you think.
Oh,
okay. They come flying, but I had an Odell Beckham catch like a year ago that was just kind of like right behind me, and I caught it, and
I love it.
Everybody's staring at me like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. I got a puck though.
With all the ice in Wisconsin being so close to Canada, it's surprising that Wisconsin doesn't have a hockey team, a professional hockey team.
Chicago prevents that.
Right. What? Yeah. Why? Because it's like a certain radius, or?
Yeah, the NHL has like some radius rule. I think that like Chicago's grandfathered into, so I don't think Milwaukee will ever have a team unless Chicago gets some kind of a share out of it.
Okay, yeah. What about
Stevens Point? How about Stevens Point? They could have a team, right?
I was going to say, what about Green Bay? Green Bay hockey team.
I don't know. Could Green Bay support an NHL team? I don't know. They already support the Packers, so you never know.
Is there a team in Minnesota?
Yeah, the Minnesota Wild. Yep.
Okay, let's get to some of our questions real quick. Hey, everyone, thanks for being here. So, Lady Cymbeline asks, is there anyone here for the Jets? Have to plug my cousin's channel again, Jets Therapy. That's a YouTube channel, and yay for that. And we have some. I like the coach for the Jets. I forgot his name.
Robert Saleh.
Saleh. He's so fun. I mean,
and handsome.
I don't consider him handsome.
Really?
It's not that. It's he's fun, and I remember. And I'm not a big fan of the 49ers, but I even liked him on the 49ers. He'd run up and down run up and down do stair climbing in the stadium before the games. And I mean, he was just fun, like a lot of energy. So I like him. And we like our Nathaniel Hackett, who is now working for the Jets. Nathaniel is your new offensive coordinator, if you did not know that. So, that's about as far as how much we like the Jets. At least how much I like the Jets.
I like Sauce Gardner. University of Cincinnati alumni. Go Bearcats.
Sauce.
I don't know, Greg. I don't know if you ever heard me mention this story, but I actually met him at his first day of summer orientation when he came on campus for that. And that very first day, we were calling out his name because he started in the group of students that I work with, calling out his name to let him know which advisor he was going with. We said, Ahmad Gardner, you're gonna be with Kelly. And he said, my name's Sauce. They're like, okay, buddy, sure, your name's Sauce. He had already changed like his name officially though in the student information system. So when you look him up, his listed as Sauce Gardner. He had swag from day one, man.
Now, lacrosse is big in Wisconsin, isn't it? Do you play or watch? Interested in lacrosse? Anyone? This comes from Lady Cymbeline.
I have not really gotten into lacrosse. I know it's kind of like hockey, but not really. But it's I have not yet though. Maybe one day.
Been to the city. Best I got.
Too deep. It mentions about hockey rules. Don't get me started. And go to a hockey game and you will be hooked. So I guess Too Deep is a hockey fan as well.
Safe to assume.
Yep.
And then Lady Cymbeline said she watched her brother as she grew up playing lacrosse, and it always seemed like hockey on a firm ground.
Yes. Yep.
So hockey without the skates.
More or less, it seems.
Okay. Yeah, the skates are pretty intense. That's pretty crazy. I don't know how anyone does all of that stuff on skates, the dancing, the figure skating, all that. Okay. All right. So let's see. Where are we? Okay. Two more questions before we get to our superlatives. So one question is, how do the people in your life support you and help all that you do for the Packer community in terms of your writing and your content creation and your future podcast?
Well, obviously I have to start out with my wife, Missy. She listens to me talk all the time about football, probably not really caring what I'm talking about half the time, but she listens to me talk about it and, puts up with me just nonstop. So Missy, you're beautiful. I love you. Thank you.
We love you, Missy.
And then probably my sons, Luke and Evan. Obviously they're a little too young to know what I'm really doing, but Luke actually helped me write an article once, and it's kind of funny. Just he gave me the idea. It was kind of it was dinner time. Usually I write in the evening after they go to bed, and I was just toying with it. Was right after the season ended, and I was trying to think of what am I going to write about? What do I do? So I looked at him and just said, "Hey, Luke, what should I write about tonight?" And he says, "Green check." I'm like, all right, green check. Wait a minute, green check. And so what I did from that was I took all the Packers rookies and I kind of like rated their season. And I was like, okay, green check is going to be if I think they have some potential.
Ooh.
If they showed some potential this season, and then like a little bit of like a dash is, they haven't really shown enough quite yet. And then red flag was, oh no. The only one that got that was Sean Ryan this season.
I would have,
for obvious reasons. But yeah, so Luke helped me actually write an article, so he
so it's kind of like
know it.
Check on Twitter, but only green.
Yep. Yep. And then my mom and dad, they read my articles every week. As soon as my articles get published, I send it off to them. And my mom told me that she's learned a lot more about football and the Packers just by reading my articles. So, and then probably I already mentioned my brother. Him and I are always chatting Packers. I always have to plug in my phone during games because I know my phone's going to die just from him and I texting each other back and forth the whole time. So it's funny because sometimes I'll be zeroed in on what's happening and I'll look over and I'll be like, oh no, he texted me like 10 times. I'm like, all right, go back. And so, and then friends, Nate, I already mentioned that I might do a podcast with, and then John and Justin, they did just the same as my brother. We're always talking Packers. Anytime something Packers comes up, it's like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So, so there's them. And then another friend of mine, Sarah. Sarah, if you're watching this, you always share my articles without having any clue what I'm talking about or caring what I'm talking about. So
that's a friend.
I love you.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. Why not? Just share it, even if you have no idea what it is. That's wonderful. You have a whole list. A whole list. Yeah. That's a lot of support. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, so then this is a good one. And our final question is for you about our beloved NFL and Packer online community, Twitter and beyond. One thing that you love the most and one thing you would change if you could.
I would say what I love the most is just the sense of community. Like there's a lot of people that write or are podcasters that just everybody kind of knows each other, and everybody, likes, retweets, compliments each other, and just like the sense of community that everybody kind of helps each other out, tries to, help promote each other, and also, sticks up for each other whenever the bad side of Packers Twitter comes across. And so that would be what I would change, is the gatekeeping. There's so much gatekeeping in Packers Twitter, but that's everywhere you go. It's like, I already said that I'm a hockey fan, and I'll pay attention to NHL, and I'll just watch teams of or fans of other NHL teams just relentlessly go after other people with other opinions. And it's just, what's the point? There's no reason for it. But so that would definitely be something that I would change. Stop bashing each other. There's no reason for it.
No, there's none. That's good. I like it.
So of course you're active in Packers Twitter. So are you also kind of active in like some hockey Twitter and stuff like that, or are there other communities that you also interact with? Or
I commentate on some, I know some writers and guys that did some radio shows in Nashville for the Predators, and I've chatted with them a lot. Not to the extent of the Packers, though. I know for the Milwaukee Admirals, their social media coordinator, she's a good friend, and so I'll make sometimes a comment on one of their social media posts from the team that's like directed towards her that I know she's gonna laugh at. So, and she'll sometimes as the team account comment on it as herself. It's like, oh boy. So not to the extent I am with the Packers, but I'm involved a little bit.
Cool.
Okay, so I had a question there. Why did you say that the Milwaukee Admirals hockey players go to Nashville?
So basically, if you're familiar with like minor league, farm teams, like players that are not good enough to go to the NHL yet, their contracts are basically under that NHL team, but they're not ready for the NHL yet. So they'll go to Milwaukee and they'll play for the team in Milwaukee, still under contract with Nashville. And so Milwaukee will have Nashville's like young players, like up and comers. So you could say that Jordan Love, like if the Packers had a minor league team, Jordan Love could be playing for the Packers minor league team right now, just kind of waiting in the ranks for Aaron Rodgers to be done. So that way they get playing time and experience, and also a lot of players come from like across the world. There's Milwaukee right now has a Russian goaltender who's getting used to playing in North America. The rinks are actually smaller here in North America than they are overseas, so he's getting used to that. He's doing a really good job. So it's just kind of a way for those young players to get acclimated to the pro game.
So, but do they have to go to Nashville?
They don't like have to. I mean, their contract, I should say that their contract is with Nashville.
Okay.
But I have seen some players decide that they don't want to. So it's very rare, though. It's kind of like that's the team that, that's the team that you're with. That's your contract, and you're going to be kind of blacklisted if you don't go with them.
Oh.
Okay. So the Milwaukee team is contracted basically with the official NHL team in Nashville. So they coordinate with one another. Okay.
Yes.
Oh.
And so it's typically like a smaller team in a different city than the big team. Is that pretty common?
It's actually a lot of teams are in the same city. Like San Diego, they actually have the not San Diego. It's San Jose Sharks. They have there's the NHL San Jose Sharks. They have their team is the San Jose Barracuda. So it's like they have their mini team is like in the same
kind of
city.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of them like that. But Milwaukee started with Nashville when Nashville first came to the NHL. In 1998, so it's been kind of like, you've been our buddies for this long, we're just gonna keep you, we love you. So, and I hope they never leave.
I would think Milwaukee and Chicago would work together because they're so nearby and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, too deep. I'm not sure I understand your. comment. It says, yep, ages 17 through 19. Does that have something to do with hockey?
Probably talking about like minor league, like when players
Minor
get
league,
drafted,
okay.
they might be 18, 19 years old.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're not,
Okay.
they still haven't developed,
Right.
as a person yet. So,
No.
Yeah,
they're
totally.
still kids, and you're going up against a 26-year-old NHL player. You're going to be smaller, and you're going to get beat up. So
Definitely.
Wow. That's why I don't have kids. They wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't even be allowed out of the house. All right. So this is great. This is great. Okay. Well, Greg, I understand you brought some superlatives.
I did.
Awesome.
good.
So let's just how about Greg, you do your first one. You'll give your first one, then Matt will give his first, and then I'll go, and then we'll just kind of do a round. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Good.
Yeah.
Sound
All
good?
right, Greg. Lead us off, man. What do you got?
All right, my first one has to be Tim Backus. I know you've had him on the show before. Tim is the first
And he talked
one.
about you too, actually.
He did,
Aw.
and I have to mention him because him and I went to high school together. It was kind of like we were in the band together. Tim was I think a year below me, and we knew each other. We were friends. We'd talk, but we did not share the love for the Packers that we do today. We didn't really know that about each other until I just kind of found him through social media. We found each other, and it was like, whoa. Hey Tim, I know you. I know you, and here you are ready for Cheesehead TV. I love Cheesehead TV. So, I have to give him a shout out. I've asked him, for some advice every now and then, and he's probably been he's a great writer in his own right, and he's also a great supporter. So, shout out to Tim.
Yeah, he's also a beer fan. So you guys have a
He
couple things
is.
going there.
Oh, he is We have a beer app called Untapped that we use, and it kind of keeps track of all the different beers we have. And Tim's like somewhere in the upper 2000s
Oh my God.
different beers he's had, and I'm lowly, like just 1100.
Just.
Right. Have you ever tried any of the California craft beers?
I probably have, but I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. If you name off some breweries, I might be like, oh yeah, I have had that.
I mean, one of that used to be a craft beer that's now in all of our grocery stores is Stone Brewery. Are you familiar with Stone?
Yep.
Yeah, that one's pretty
I've had
easy.
Stone.
That's probably like in all the grocery stores. I don't know. It is here.
I've seen it here in Cincy.
Yeah. There's all kinds of different ones though, but that brewery is right over here, like nearby. Yeah. Okay, Maddie, what do you got?
Yeah, so the end of the football season for the Packers, of course, is going to be the sort of like ramping up to the draft season, just naturally, because that's the next big thing, in the calendar. And so it feels really overwhelming to me at this point because you have some amazing people, pumping out like all kinds of stuff really fast. Like, Brian Maffey is putting out a ton of stuff right now. A bunch of people, Brandon Rupp, for example, just a bunch of people are just fire hoses on for that kind of content. And so for me, I'm like, I don't know where to start. You guys are amazing. I am overwhelmed. So this one, my first superlative is best intro to draft season. So this was this week's, I want to say Tuesday Pack-A-Day podcast. It was Jacob Westendorf and Ross Uglum. They're talking about their favorite early round player that they're starting to get sort of a draft crush on, mid round and late round. And it was really fascinating just to hear a couple of names and they give their they gave their rationale about why they like these guys. And so just to start to put some names in my head, just starting small, I really appreciated that. And of course, they're both so knowledgeable. And Ross is huge into the draft, especially, and when he talks about the guys from North Dakota State that he's been watching the whole time there since he's involved with the scene there. Really cool. I love to hear that stuff. So that was a great start to to just approach the draft season for me, and I appreciated it.
I like that. That's on my next on my queue for podcasts.
Nice.
And just kind of dipping the toes into the draft season because we haven't been through the Super Bowl yet and all that. So
right.
Yeah. Getting ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to get ready.
Ready to get ready.
Okay. I kind of I'm going to mess up our rhythm a little bit here because I'm going to bring a fraternizing with the enemies
Ooh, kicking it
yeah.
off, Dawn. All right.
Yeah, I don't know if Greg is familiar with this, but it's when I talk about a player from another team. Okay. So, and I've been saving this one up for a little while. And so there's like three kind of superlatives within this one. So the fraternizing with the enemy segment this week goes to Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. And Geno's long and colorful road to QB1 to become QB1 for the Seahawks. So to tell the story of Geno Smith, as I did a little bit of research, we start back in the day. And lady, if you are still with us, Lady Cymbeline, you might remember this as a Jets fan. When Geno Smith actually got sucker punched, supposedly, by another player. So let's see if we can go back. I mean, and if you read the article, it sounds like Geno actually did the sucker punching. So I think there's more to that too. There's a lot of color in Geno Smith's background. So just so you know, why am I doing this is because I thought it was interesting that Geno was with the NFL for so long before he became QB1. And when he did come on the scene, I felt like he did really well last year. And of course, this year he did very well for the Seahawks when what's his name? hurt his finger or whatever it was, and he went through all his 20 hours a day therapy. Remember that? QB1 who went to the Broncos. Geno Smith
Oh,
said
Russell
it.
Wilson. Yeah. Okay. When he did the hype video when he came back.
I like to forget his name. Yeah, the drama. But Geno Smith just came in and did the job, and he really looked good. I mean, it was pretty flawless. So in any case, back in the day, and this leads to another player, which is kind of interesting. So back in the day, a player named IK Kampali actually supposedly sucker punched, and he got ejected from the team. Well, not immediately. Long story short, but I'm going to play you a little bit of just really quick. Oh, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. I bet you won't, because I've got my microphone on. I bet you can't hear this.
We'll see. Give it a shot. We'll let you know.
Imagine living your life under a set of principles that include respect and honesty, only to be disrespected and lied to by somebody that you trusted. Then to make matters worse, you're constantly getting ridiculed behind it over and over and over again. Imagine being in a situation where your manhood is challenged and you now have to choose between your self-respect or your well-paying job. What would you do? Sacrifice the money, possibly putting your family in a tough situation, or sacrificing your self-respect and having that eat away at your manhood over time? Well, today I'm going to tell you the story of IK Impali, a man who took action. And man, I don't even know why everybody was tripping, because as an NFL defensive end, the dude got paid to hit quarterbacks. Okay, not his own quarterback.
Okay, as you all know, I am a big fan of this gentleman's podcast, but what we're talking about is Geno Smith. So why do I digress? So IK, and if you listen to the story by Flemlo Raps on his YouTube channel, and the links will be, of course, in the description below, you're going to hear more about Geno's character. So way back in the day when Geno was a young quarterback, he was a quarterback for the Jets, and IK was a Nigerian immigrant who was quite a gentleman by all accounts. And IK was like a 6th round draft pick for defensive end, but he was a real leader, and he was beloved. And what happened is off season came around, and IK was always giving back to his community. He's from Texas. And he had that classic Friday Night Lights story coming into the NFL, the whole thing. And he wanted to give back to his high school. And he arranged for a camp for his high school. And he asked some players if they would like to participate. And Geno Smith said, "Oh, by all means, I will coach. I will coach." So he got his high school all pumped up for Gino being the coach because, he's the quarterback, right? It wasn't just a couple of defensive ends and, safeties or whatever. It was the quarterback who was going to come. Basically, long story short, Geno Smith did not show up. And he really embarrassed IK. But not only that, when IK asked, hey dude, what's up? I mean, IK put out money for his travel, for his hotel, the whole 9 yards. It was a really big deal. And again, it was Gino who offered to do this. He didn't just no show, but he ghosted him. He didn't answer his calls. He didn't answer his nothing. It was like, what's up, dude? So he asked him, what's happening? And would you mind at least paying for the travel expenses and reimbursing me? This is a quarterback. He had the money, right? And Gino just rubbed his face in it like all season. And, IK didn't want to let it go. Okay. I mean, who would? And right. he was like, at least pay me back. I think he wanted an apology, never got one. And Gino got up in his face in the locker room, evidently, or I can't remember if it was on the field or in the locker room. I believe it was in the locker room. And he put his hand out in his face, in IK's face, and challenged him. And IK punched him in the face. And basically his IK's career tumbled down from that. It was just one thing after another. He had another thing, and you got to listen to Flemlo's summary because he does it so much better. But back to Gino. So I was like all excited about this quarterback who had paid his dues and stepped in for Russell Wilson, and I was cheering him on. And then I heard the story about IK, and I was heartbroken. I was like, what? And I look at Gino, I will never look at Geno Smith the same again. So, and this, if you look into some of the background of like, who's this Geno Smith? Where did he come from? He's doing so well. You're going to hear this story. It kept stayed with him. I don't think he ever came to terms with IK. IK ended up leaving the NFL because of it. But I will, just for fairness sake, I will in the comments, I will also not in the comments, excuse me, in the description, in the show description, you'll get a link, which is a really great article from the Sporting News about Geno Smith's entire timeline, his entire career, starting with the Jets to the Seahawks and him resurging. So, and that was written in November of 2022, and it got my attention. And it's a very comprehensive timeline of his career. And it's interesting. It's quite interesting. But I don't want to mention this quarterback and how much I admire what he did without paying my dues to IK. So that's it.
Yeah, it's an important part of his story for sure. And like the Geno Smith, come off the bench underdog story where he takes over as the quarterback for the Seahawks and does really well, gets them, to the playoffs, right? Yeah, they got to the playoffs instead of us. That's right. So like it's quite an amazing story, and like it's hard not to root from until you hear that stuff about IK. Then you're like, oh man, I feel conflicted. But people are complex, and we can hold two things in our heads at the same time. Like, this is a good story, and this is an unfortunate thing that happened in his past. And yeah, I mean, hopefully he grew and learned from it. Hopefully.
Evidently, he's still got a little bit of that edge, but hopefully he's learning to, yes, as you say, but there's more than that story. But yeah, for sure. And I just like I say, I can't look at him anymore without thinking of that defensive end from Texas whose career actually, I mean, he of course got kicked off the team immediately, and then he went somewhere else, and then one other thing happened, and it was, anyway, it's quite a story, but it's also so interesting to remind us how tight these team members are, and how what they even say in press conferences about another team member can affect that person's career. And how careful, hopefully they're being and protecting that team, that brotherhood and all that. Yeah. So good luck to Team Geno Smith. I hope he continues to flourish and, like you say, to grow from that. But there's some great articles about his rise or his story. And then, of course, Flemlo's piece on IK, which I think everyone should listen to.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, what do you have for us? Oh, and by the way, since you're on, Too Deep has some more questions. Okay, I'm just going to read Too Deep's comment about minor league hockey players that are up and coming, age 16 to 19 years old, either heading to a college team or to the NHL, are my favorite games to watch, but that they start grooming these kids too young. And of course, I think about head injuries and kids playing football when they're too young and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, he said it's like other sports with athletes in the junior leagues. And then, of course, he doesn't mind that we don't read his comments, but of course we're going to read your comments too. So any thoughts on how young that hockey players are groomed to play? And I mean, you're a father of 2 young boys. Are they going to play hockey?
I don't know. I'm not really going to steer them towards it. You know, I'll try to let them, you know, if they decide they want to do it, absolutely. It's like I played football, I never played hockey. So it's like you want to ask Dad for some advice, go play football. I don't know much about hockey. So but you know, it's just kind of the way you listen to an NHL player's story. Like, one thing that I like about the NHL is they have dad's trips, they call them, where the team will have each player's father will accompany them on a road trip for like 2 away games, and the dads will kind of hang around with the players, you know, through the locker room, you know, in the hotel to games, and they'll show like the dads in the crowd, or they'll even show like their moms in the crowd too. They'll have moms trips, and you get to hear like that. You know, this guy started, you know, yeah, my son started skating at, you know, 3-4 years old. And, you know, we started going to rinks that were, you know, 50 miles away from our home, and, you know, regardless of the weather, and it was every day, and it was at, you know, 4 a.m. we would drive 50 miles away to this rink and go play. And I think if my kids have the drive to do it, then I'll definitely indulge them, and I'll, you know, do whatever they want to do to help them play hockey. Luckily for me, there are a lot of rinks in the Milwaukee area. I don't have to drive 50 miles to the next rink.
Right.
So it's if they want to do it, sure, let's do this. I know it's going to be expensive. I know, you know, we'll see what their interest level is, but, you know, for them, grooming them young, yeah, there are a lot of kids that get drafted at 16 years old.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's 16 years old, you're, you know, midway through high school, and you're being you know, not even going to college yet, and you're being considered for, you know, an NHL team. You know, you're holding your NHL jersey that you're probably not going to wear for like 4 or 5 years. So yeah, it's interesting. It's just kind of the way it is, I guess. And I think mainly because players are drafted from across the world. And it's like in Switzerland, Finland, Sweden, you know, that's the way it is. There is no college teams in like Sweden. Like, there's no NCAA there. It's all like different junior hockey leagues. So that's why I think a lot of players get, you know, drafted so young, as they deem them ready to go. 18, get your butt in the NHL, I guess.
What about Canada? Same?
Yeah, it's the same with Canada. They have a lot of junior leagues in Canada where players will play like 16, 17 years old.
I used to think that in the NFL that they had to go to college, but we do have a few, very little, but we do have a couple NFL players that bypass college. Yeah. But very, very, that's an outlier, right?
Very seldom, yeah. I always love to laugh when NFL players in like the primetime games, they'll call out their high school instead of their college. So everybody will think, did he go to college?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely heard at least one player say their middle school, actually. I can't think of who it was, but
wow. But that means that's do they just call them out because they want to call them out?
Probably that.
They think
Oh,
it's funny. I don't know. It could mean a
I've
number of
seen that
things.
too. Not
It's like,
often, but yeah.
Yeah.
like Aaron Rodgers went to Cal and he calls out Butte Community College all the time.
I love that.
And it's like, I think he just wants to, hey, Butte, I love you. There you go. Cal doesn't need the advertisement,
Yeah.
but
Right.
Butte could use it.
Well, but with Aaron Rodgers, that's his highest level because he didn't graduate from Cal.
Right. Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
That could be.
I was figuring it was appreciation because they took a chance on him when other schools wouldn't.
Right.
That's
Right.
true. Yep.
Cool. Okay. Greg, the floor is yours.
All right. My next one, I'm going to call it the best sense of humor in Packers Twitter, and that goes to Aaron Alice.
Yes.
Aaron is my absolute favorite, one of my absolute favorite follows on Twitter, and just the crude sense of humor. I love it. So every time I'm watching a game and I hear like a possible innuendo, I just start refreshing Twitter. I'm like, come on here. Sure enough, she'll be like, yeah, my ex-boyfriend. So Aaron, you're great. I love following you on Twitter. I've listened to your blogs as well, Snortsky. So
We love Aaron on this show. So Aaron,
it's basically, hey, we love Aaron. This show is basically that. So yeah, absolutely. We're with you. We're with you, Greg. Love you, Aaron.
Yep.
All right, Maddie, what do you have?
Yeah, I have one more. And so I saw a tweet this week that got me really excited. And this was coming from Joe Pearson, known as Iowa Joe, out in the community here. He's one half of the Outback Packers podcast that he does with Nick Gregory, who you may remember was actually a guest on the Wednesday Pack-A-Day. He's the cat from Australia, remember? Don's a whole lot of blank stare here. Don does not remember, but anyhow, yeah, he was a guest on the show, and so he and Joe Pearson do a podcast. So anyhow, the tweet though was announcing who they're going to have on their show coming up, talking about the draft, and this is just like a real who's who of some of our favorite content creators. So I'm just going to read off the list of upcoming guests on the Outback Packers podcast. We got Sarah Kelleher, who was our first guest ever.
Oh, right.
Ryan Maffey, Sam Holman, Mike Kawano, Jason Perrone, Dan Kotnick, Dusty, our man Dusty, and Jacob Westendorf. So I mean, look at that list.
It's like
that's awesome.
Who.
Absolutely, and I have that on my queue too. With Sarah as guest, she just posted about it. Awesome. Yes, I know who you're talking about. I'm sorry, I just went blank. I'm so sorry.
The guy from Australia.
I'm just old. I'm old.
There it is. Our weekly mention of Don's age.
Okay, just to keep the rhythm going, I do have one superlative here so that I can toss it back over to our illustrious guest, Greg. And let's see what it is. Oh, that's right. Biggest shade goes to Tom Brady. Tom Brady, in his retirement comments. Did you listen? Did anyone listen?
What was? Yeah, I watched it right when it came out. What was the shade? I forget.
Giselle. It was on Giselle, theoretically. Maybe not. Maybe not. I wouldn't do one thing differently.
That did. My ears pricked up when he said, I was like, one thing differently, wouldn't you?
Are you sure?
Evidently, I mean, woo. Okay. Sorry, Giselle, but that was kind of. But he might not have meant it that way.
I mean, it's a weird thing to say because everyone knows the relationship. They actually divorced. Is that right? Did they actually divorce, or is it just?
I don't know if is it finalized yet? But she left when he unretired. So.
Yeah, I mean they split. I think we can say that. So everyone knows, and so if you say I wouldn't change a thing, you're gonna think about what are the things he did? Well, that was a thing that happened. You wouldn't change that. So not
a single regret, not one.
Yeah, that was kind of bold, but who knows? We don't know what the whole story is. So that's the biggest shade, though. Either way, even if he has a little reason, even if he has justification, which I'm sure he feels like he does, no problem. I just feel like that was throwing some shade.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, we have quarterbacks who are passive aggressive. We have quarterbacks who are going through a lot. You know, that's how it is.
Yes.
What else do you have, Greg?
Well, just to kind of go off of yours, that I will say that I just read that Tom Brady retired. I couldn't listen to him talk.
I know.
No. So that's I didn't know that until now that he said that. So that's pretty funny. It's just a disdain for Tom Brady for so long. I see he's retiring and I see this video. No, don't automatically play. I don't want to hear it.
No. Right. I'm with you on that.
He's retiring. Cool. Bye. Let's get on with it.
I think maybe it's easier for me to listen to Tom Brady than Aaron Rodgers, though, because it's more close. You know, it's easier to like make fun of. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just not as close.
All right, so my next superlative, Matt, you actually had him last week, and I had to shout him out again. It's Tyler Herrick. He's just the best meme creator / intern / creator of quality baguette content. I love Tyler. He's just all over the place. He's always right on his game. Yeah. Anytime something comes out, a rumor, it's hilarious how quickly Cheesehead TV puts out a meme on it or something. And the joke about the baguette content, I think Tyler was going to France, and I told him, I was like, I can't wait for some quality baguette content. And it was just a little joke. And just before you know it, he had a picture of a baguette as soon as he got to France. And I was like, oh, you're the man, Tyler.
Yeah.
So it's been back and forth. Like I've commented little baguette comments to him ever since then. And so, Tyler, you're amazing. I love your memes.
We love you.
Shout out to you.
You're here.
And Greg, did you bring 3 this week?
That was the third one. Yeah.
Was that your third?
That was my third.
Oh my gosh,
Tim,
sorry.
Aaron, and
I lost how to
Tyler.
count. Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad. You guys, I'm tired. Okay. and I'm glad that Too Deep has posed this question to us, because I was actually going to ask this question. Do y'all have any strong opinions about this? Oh, Pro Bowl. I thought you meant the Super Bowl.
No, the Pro Bowl? No, it's boring and I don't want to watch it.
Okay.
That's my strong opinion.
We're going to switch Pro to Super Bowl. Okay. Who we got for the Super Bowl? Are you going to watch? You're going to watch.
Yeah, definitely watch. Religiously have to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay. So
just
I'm going to go Eagles. I'm
going with I don't care.
Yeah, who cares?
I just want a good game. I'm not emotionally invested in either team. You know, I mean, if it were a team if either were a team I didn't like, obviously I'd root against them. They're both nothing. I mean, they're both really good teams. That's not what I mean. But as far as like my own connection to them, there's none really. I mean, kind of cool that MVS might get a ring, I guess, or whatever. Right. You know, that's just barely a blip for me. So no, I'm just hoping for a good game.
I don't know. I'm kind of cheering for the Eagles. I don't care very much at all, but just because they've done so well this year, their quarterback is fantastic. I am so sick of Mahomes, you know, and all the overly like. I don't hate him, or I just am sick of it, and because it's too much. It's just too much. All I want is the refs to stay out of the game.
Oh God,
yes.
Seriously.
And for it to be reasonably competitive.
Yeah.
Our standards are so low. Isn't that terrible? That's terrible.
After last weekend, you set the bar low.
And so many games. Yeah, it was a rough year with the refs. I think it was just particularly bad.
Yes.
And injuries. Okay.
I wonder if your Mahomes thing comes down to I know you've talked before how much you hate bath bombs, so I think it's kind of tied to that, right? He's a big bath bomb guy. I don't know if you knew that, but
I saw the commercial. I like bath bombs too, but no, it's not that. For one thing, he's gonna bite his tongue off. Put your tongue in your mouth. Just leave your tongue in your mouth. We don't need to see that.
Oh, you know who? So I talked about collecting football cards, and you know who was just every single card I had of him? John Elway would always have his tongue out.
Really?
Always. He was Always John Elway. It was just religious. Every card I would get of him, John Elway. If his mouth was closed, his mouth was closed. But if his mouth was open, his tongue was out, and it was hilarious because I always knew I could count on like the next John Elway card for him just to be like.
Yeah, mark my words though. He's gonna bite that tongue during a
Yep.
game. There's gonna be blood everywhere. It's gonna be
Wow.
disgusting.
That is disgusting.
It's awful. Did
He
you
better
know
stitch it up and get back in the game like a
That's
hockey
right.
player, though. Yeah.
what? Yeah. when Kelsey was popping off at the end of the game. Okay, Mahomes was there with his tongue out. Did you see that? I screenshot. He was
I
like,
did.
he looks like.
Well, you know, Don, if we are hopefully entering the Jordan Love era, there's a lot of tongue out from him too. So you have to get used to it. Yeah. Oh
Not
yeah.
that much.
Oh yeah. No, there is footage.
I do recall Favre doing it too. I remember occasionally.
Oh yeah,
You'd have like
I don't get it.
just. I should go find like my football cards of these guys just to show you, but they're
Yes.
buried
Yeah, I wanna
somewhere.
see it. Yeah, I wanna see it. When you get them out one day, when you're playing with your kids and you're going through them, then maybe just take some photos and do a Twitter post and tag me.
I will.
Hashtag NFL tongue. And Drew Brees drove me crazy too with the lick thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that made me crazy because it was just like the germs, like every single minute was like lick. So I know it's just kind of like a nervous thing and all that, but it's just something. Leave your tongue home. Like just leave your tongue home.
Leave your tongue home.
when you're on television.
Not when you're getting ice cream. Bring the tongue with you. That's societally appropriate, I think.
Yep.
Well, Greg, it's been so fun to have you. Thank you again for joining us. And do you have any final thoughts before we do our little sign off tonight?
Oh, just gonna say thanks for having me. It's been a blast. If you ever decide you want to have me on again, I am in. Had a lot of fun. So absolutely. If I do start a podcast, I'll let you know. Maybe you'll have to have both Nate and I on the pod and on here if we do the podcast.
That would be great. And
outstanding.
Nate, send on Nate over. We'd love to have him as a guest as well.
Mhm. And I will say too, Greg, any like, I guess, barriers in the way of doing a podcast, any things that are making you hesitate, any trepidation you might have, you just got to jump past it and just jump in, really. That's kind of how it went for us. Don said, "Hey, Matt, want to do a podcast?" I was like, "I don't know." And then I was like, "I guess I'll try it." And then it's awesome. And we get to talk every week and we have a lot of fun with it and with our guests, our awesome guests. So can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think writing has definitely gotten me into like I can do this. Like
Yes,
I've realized that, nighttime after the kids go to bed, that's, a little bit of time that I have. And it's like, hey, I'll talk to Nate, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Let's do our podcast then.
Yeah.
So
just talk and record it.
Yep.
Talk and record and I just try not to edit. Like my thing with Matt was, okay, once he agreed to do the podcast, I was like, no. So by the way, I'm not going to edit. So whatever we do, it's good to like one try, good, bad, or ugly, it's going up because I don't like editing. It's awful. It's horrible.
I'll probably be the same way. I'll just wing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I edit my writing, but not my podcast. Video editing is just the pits.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll move into the end here. So, Greg, can't thank you enough, man. This has been great. Friends, make sure you're following Greg Meinholz on Twitter, and that is at @Meinholz, GMEINHOLZ. And of course, you'll find links in our show description for everyone we mentioned, so please check it out. And whether you're a super fan or content creator, we'd love to have a chance to interview you. So if you're a subscriber, our DMs are open at Hey Willip on all the social platforms. We'd love to hear from you or someone you'd like to nominate to be a guest on our podcast this year. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. The best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, that's right, Maddie, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you. and to have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod. And we look forward to seeing you next week on.
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.